Morning, everyone, and welcome to the Windward Buddhist Temple's virtual Dharma service. This morning, we will be remembering those loved ones who have passed away in the month of December. So I will ring the Daiking after each name is read, and then go immediately into the chanting of Juseige, which is found on page 54 of the Red Service book. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to him, the exalted one, the enlightened one, the supremely awakened one. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I go to the Sangha for guidance. Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda, Namanda, Namanda. Masuno Asada. Shizoe Hirota. Kazutomo Ochikubo. Alden Kusano. Taiko Tashiro. Amy Tatsuguchi. Namandao, 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 Namandao. Seifu Joshoga 無力不意大世襲不在庶民政府上昇が大市場分の病床上実法苦行未消門政府上昇が利欲人少年上映宗門業死ぐ無常の一生天人死人力現代公不祥無才道少女三苦名法裁修薬難回避知縁言名詞根門案永息小悪の自断然宗門高僧上満足異様実法日願修十期天公不言一周解放像公正功徳法上内修十説法施施具供養一切物具足消毒本元年心上満徳意三愛用両分無下知自断未不祥安悪営力投資再小尊志願略国家大戦を官能国書天人道珍妙見ナマナムナマナムナマナムナマナムナマナムナマナム何しぐろく平等正祭道本もないし往生あらこナマンダウスナマンダナマンダナマンダナマンダナマンダ Today's recitation is our pledge. Let's put our hands together. Reaching out to others, I will share a smile and gentle words, just like the Buddha, who always calls out with aloha. Breaking away from my greed, anger, and ignorance, I will try to live in peace and harmony, just like the Buddha, who shares tranquility and kindness with all. Moving forward from self-centeredness, I will share a life of joy and sorrow with others, just like the Buddha, whose caring heart always embraces us. Realizing that I live because of others, I will strive to live life to the fullest with an attitude of gratitude, just like the Buddha, who promises to embrace us all. Namo Amida Butsu. Good morning, everyone, and once again, thank you for joining us in this last of the year Windward Buddhist Temple's virtual Dharma service. As you all know, we have been observing Remembrance Day for not only family members, but also friends and pets as well, those who have passed away on a particular month, regardless of the year. So let me remind you that if you would like us to remember them in this remembrance service, please let us know and send us a picture too if it's available. Now please join me by putting your hands together in reverence as I read these words of aspiration. My eyes being hindered by blind passions, I cannot perceive the light that grasps me, yet the great compassion without tiring illumines me always. We who aspire for Amida's fulfilled land, though we differ in outward condition and conduct, should truly receive the name of the primal vow and never forget it, whether waking or sleeping. Namo Amida Butsu. In the Tanisho, which is a book that was written by Yoembo, who was a disciple of Shinran, and in which contains the sayings and teachings of Shinran, it was written after Shinran's passing to correct various misunderstandings of what Shinran taught that had been going around in the country. It is a book that teaches the truth of leaving differences and disputes behind, letting ego and spiritual ambitions go, the mysteries of the primal vow and the name, dropping it all, waking up and going on. So writes Gary Snyder, who was a Pulitzer Prize-winning poet who was associated with the Beat Generation and the so-called San Francisco Renaissance of poetry in the 1950s. Shinran says that in the 13th chapter that good thoughts arise in our minds due to the effect of past good, and we are made to think and do evil because of the working of karmic evil. That we should know that even a trifling thing as a speck of dust on the tip of a rabbit's hair or a sheep's fleece is a product of past karma. Then he goes on to ask his disciple Yoembo, would you agree to anything I say? Of course I will, he replied. He again asked him the same question. And after Yoembo again agreed, Shinran says, go then and kill 1,000 people, and your birth in the Pure Land is settled. Well, Yoembo replied that he could not even kill a single person. Shinran then goes on to explain that the reason he is not able to kill a single person is that the causes and conditions were not mature enough for him to commit a crime such as this. But if it were, then he would be able to do so. That our acts, whether good or bad, comes out of past karma. Karma in Jodo Shinshu is a series of interconnectedness with all beings. All beings contribute to karma. In our daily newspaper, there was the story of a man who was totally devoted to his terminally ill wife, who went and visited her in the hospital daily, but became so frustrated to see her suffer that he took it upon himself and tried to end her suffering by shooting her with a flare gun. family members and neighbors alike described this person as a devoted husband who were very close to each other. They were a closely knit couple, according to their children. One of my nieces knew the man because she was a classmate and a friend of one of their children. All who knew him were shocked that such a thing would happen. It was written in the papers that he was a loving and caring husband, and he would visit his wife daily and saw to her needs and kept her company. But he was arrested as a common criminal, and I'm sure after reading all the accounts in the papers calling him a killer, he was banned from the hospital, from seeing his wife, and having to post a bail of $50,000, he became despondent. He was scheduled to appear in court, but hung himself at home, ending his life. And if you read the blogs that people entered on the web, you may have been dismayed by the lack of compassion shown by some. But just by my saying that also shows a lack of compassion and understanding when you really think about it, doesn't it? Without going into any of the details of what was written, let me say that some have shown real understanding and compassion that we as Buddhists strive in our path to enlightenment. Shinran places a great role on karma in human behavior, and he constantly advocated and pleaded with his followers to act with respect and propriety toward members of their community, society, and other religious groups. And so at the beginning of my talk, I related to you what Shinran told Uembo, even though what happened in the case of this person may seem unconscionable, causes and conditions resulted in this occurrence. There is a principle in Buddhism that we're all very well aware of, that life is interdependent. Nagarjuna reveals in the doctrine of dependent origination, or in Sanskrit Paticca Samutpada, that all mental and physical states arise from and depend on conditions, and that we are a product of many influences that create who we are and how we feel. In the Judeo-Christian tradition, the problem of human rights and human duty to other people must be considered in relation to the commandments, whereas in Buddhism, the same problem should be grasped in relation to all living beings in the universe. Whatever arises, mental states, for example, is conditioned by all preceding events. Past events may not determine, but does influence what comes next. In other words, we cannot put the blame on others, as we are all to be responsible for what happens in our own way. Since we are all interconnected and that all criminal offenses are causes and conditions that we are not and cannot be altogether aware of, a judgment cannot be made. While we bring suffering to other people, it is because we so desire in our own way to create a harmonious world in which to live. Not being able to fulfill this desire is the most profound suffering that we can experience. We should reflect on ourselves and think that what we might have done to make the world a better place for both victim and perpetrator alike. We ourselves as Buddhists should not judge. And we should not feel righteous in looking down on people. On another note, it is the Christmas season, and although we do not observe the birth of Christ and the Nativity as such, we can wish everyone a Merry Christmas in gratitude and appreciation for all that has been given to us. This is why gifts are given and received at this time. And they call it osebo in the Japanese tradition. It is a word that many people will hear in Japan around this time of the year. The word refers to a custom of giving a gift to people who took good care of you or showed you kindness, such as an important client or a neighbor. A special corner for Oseibo gifts is set up during this season at department stores across Japan. There is a parallelism in Asian tradition as far as Santa Claus is concerned. Although Santa Claus is derived from the Christian Saint Nicholas, who it is to have filled the shoes with sweets and gifts that children left out the door for him. In a Japanese tradition, there is the Hote, commonly known as the Laughing Buddha, although he was a real person, a monk in China, who oftentimes is considered a bodhisattva and an incarnation of Maitreya, or Miroku, the future Buddha. He would be walking around with a huge bag of food that he would give to the poor and toys that he would give to the children. I have heard that some Buddhists do not buy and decorate trees for Christmas because it is not in their tradition. Well, when you think about it, Christians should not either, because it is written in the Bible that He admonishes His people not to decorate their homes with trees, as a number of pagan religions did so to celebrate the winter solstice. And so there you have it. It's up to you what your view of Christmas is. Let me read you this story from the Lotus Sutra that can be reinterpreted as a Buddhist Christmas story. One time, a young man inherited 4 farms from his father. He also married his childhood sweetheart. He celebrated his good fortune by building a great house with servants and many rooms. As the children were born, the man bought many toys. He filled the children's rooms with toys of many colors and sizes. The children loved to play for hours in their nursery. One day a fire broke out in the house. The father shouted, "Run, everybody!" Naturally, he expected his children to run out of the house with them, but they didn't follow the mother and the father outside to safety. The parents called and called to the children, but they did not want to leave their wonderful toys. A neighbor who had come to help suggested that they lure the children out with more toys. "Well, we don't have any," said the father. "We'll just make them up," suggested the tear-faced mother as the flames grew hotter and hotter. "Come on out," shouted the father and mother together. "We have horses, carts, jumping frogs, mechanical dolls, bows, and even a monkey." The children left the burning house and their beloved toys to see the new ones, and thus were saved. When the smoke cleared from their eyes, they saw the house destroyed. They also noticed that there were really no new toys to be seen at all. For the first time in their lives, they knew what it was to have nothing and be very grateful indeed. A companion story to that of the burning house and how the children were saved from the fire is a lesson on the love of a parent and the value of human life. It is a story of how we care for one another. Mr. A visited a close friend, Mr. B. They were happy to have seen each other and started to drink. Mr. A was in a happy mood, drank too much, and became totally intoxicated. He soon fell asleep in Mr. B's house. Then a messenger from the government came with an order that Mr. B should immediately go and take care of some business. Before leaving, Mr. B decided to give Mr. A a priceless jewel as a gift. And so he sewed it to the back of Mr. A's sleeve, who was sleeping like a dog. Then Mr. B left to take care of his business. When Mr. Wei awoke in the next morning, he was totally unaware of what Mr. B had done for him while he was sleeping. Then Mr. A traveled to a foreign country. But Mr. A, who did not have a job, quickly used up all of his money. So in order to survive, he had to work as a day laborer at various places. He could barely survive. With the little money he earned, he lived an extremely impoverished life. Having lived as a miserable vagrant for many years, he finally decided to return to his home country. On the way, he happened to meet up with Mr. B. And so he said to Mr. A, "You look awful. How come you're leading such a poor and miserable life? The last time we drank together at my house, I left to take care of some business while you were still sleeping. But before I left, I had sewn a priceless jewel into the back of your sleeve so that you might be able to live rich and in comfort. Even now, I can remember the day, the month, and the year when I did that. Yeah, look. Look at your sleeve. The jewel is still there. Not knowing about this treasure, you have been working so hard to earn your living. What a sad turn of events this is. Why don't you immediately take the jewel out of your sleeve, sell it for cash, and buy everything you want and need? You'll be able to live a wonderful life." This story is actually a story in which the Buddha teaches us, in a way, the value of human life through what is called expedient means, to teach us that each one is a jewel, a priceless jewel, that each one of us has. Each one of us has this precious jewel, although we may not know it. Even though we may not have the material things that others may have, each one of us is a valuable jewel. This priceless jewel that we have, that watches over us, are a unique and priceless individual that shines the light of compassion to each other. And the worth of each individual life is a shining jewel, reflecting its life, its light, on varying colors of the spectrum on each other and back to us. It's only that we don't know that we possess it. By the guidance of the Buddha, we're awakened to this fact and realize that we are perfect as we are, and that it is sometimes okay to be not okay, as in a Korean romantic television series. Now, thank you all for listening, and now would you all join me once again in kansho as I read from the preface of the Tanisho. We should know that the original vow of Amida does not discriminate whether one is young or old, good or evil. True faith alone is necessary, for the vow was made to save sentient beings who are burdened with great karmic evil and intense fiery passions. Thus, if we have true faith in Amida's original vow, other good acts are not necessary because there is no good superior to the Nembutsu. Neither should evil actions be feared because no evil is capable of obstructing the working of Amida's original vow. Namo Amida Butsu. We will conclude today's service with a Gatha, Homeward I Go, followed by the Nembutsu.
Joy.
Namo Amida. Namo Amida. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida. Namo Amida Butsu. Those who deeply entrust themselves to Amida's vow of great compassion should all say Namo Amida Butsu constantly, whether they are waking or sleeping. Namo Amida Butsu. Well, thank you very much for attending this virtual Dharma service. Please keep well, and hope to see you again next week. Thank you.